Welcome to Ask the Experts, a daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small business. Ask any questions in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so do engage with it, and we will reveal the results at the end. So hi, everyone. My name is Sean Goldsmith. I have been in franchising for the past 20 years here in Britain, but have also been involved heavily in franchising, abroad. My company is called The Special Advisor. And effectively, what I do is I help franchisors increase their profits, get their networks working better, and generally turning things around, innovating slightly in order to be able to make the franchise even better and grow even stronger. So I work with companies from startup phase all the way through to well-established franchisors, and also franchisors coming over to the UK or going overseas. So today I thought I'd talk to you a little bit more about franchising, collaboration in franchising, what franchising really is. And I've got a slightly different take on, the franchising and how it actually helps individual franchisees as well as the franchisors actually create a stronger business for themselves. But I got into franchising in the tender age of 24 years old. I'd arrived in the UK. My parents are originally British, and I arrived in the UK from South Africa. And I was one of those kids who were pouring pints at the football stadiums and doing all the bits and pieces. So one day I went to my employer and I just said, look, if I bring a few of my friends, will you give me a bit of commission, or at least pay me 50p an hour more? Because at that stage, I think I was on £5 an hour working at places like the Majestic Stadium and places like that. And I really just needed, a pay increase. Anyway, I brought some friends in, and the next thing I knew, I had a recruitment company. And about 6 to 9 months later, we were working with a company called Amazon, and we were supplying staff all over the country, from their northern warehouses up in Gourock all the way down Milton Keynes, while the customer services was still in Reading. We were supplying staff in Reading, and it was a hell of a ride. Anyway, the contract came to an end, and and I decided, well, look, what's the next step? And eventually bumped into a business that was franchising, and it was franchising home services. And that was quite a pivotal moment in my life, because my experience with the recruitment and with Amazon and those kind of guys really, it was like an MBA in business. I still think it was one of the most valuable times of my life. But I got into franchising, and there, all of a sudden, I realized that there was a new calling. There were so many people out there in the world who really wanted to open up their own businesses. They had the passion, they had everything in place, but for whatever reason, whether it just be life in general, they just never had the opportunity to do it. And quite often, what was happening, and bearing in mind I was still a youngster at this stage, quite often what would happen is people of my age now, 40 plus, 50, and even people who are very, very close to retirement, finally finding that moment in their lives where they were actually able to go into a business. And quite often they turn to franchising, and there are obvious reasons for that, because franchising is a proven model. You have the backup, and you have the support, and you have all those people all around you, and it allows you to kind of just get on with it. Get into a concept, and just start focusing on the things that matter. So, which brings me on to kind of, what I define franchising as. And, there's a lot of people with, abbreviations behind their names, and, they've been to all the big schools, etc. But, in my experience, what franchising really does, and how it really truly helps entrepreneurs, kind of get into a position where they are making money. And bearing in mind, 93.7% of franchisees are not only profitable after year three, well, not only in business, but they're also profitable by year three, which is quite a stark contrast compared to people doing it themselves. And how I believe that actually occurs is you do have a franchisor who has created a system, who has done all the branding, etc. But when you, as a new person starting a business, once you start, earning revenue, the big problem is, if you've done it yourself, as I did, you spend a huge amount of time on things that don't actually generate you money. And what franchising really does for you is it says to you, well, don't worry about what the brand looks like, because here we go. This is the brand. Don't go and spend 6 months trying to develop the perfect website, all the time working really, really well, but none of the time going to get clients. We've got that website for you. Don't worry about going to try and find mentors and advisors, etc., which you still can do, but we are here. We have done it. And here is the map. This is the map. This is what you need to do. These are the steps you need to follow. Don't worry about going to try and figure out what advertising you need to do and how you need to do it locally. And, what is social media and how to use social media and how to put social media into context. When you're a small business and all you're trying to do is you're just trying to service the people in your local community, these big social media platforms, but still you need to sell to people who are really close to you. And franchising allows you to actually have a plan for that. They know that if you go and use local parish magazines, they're going to be more powerful than Google, because the guys reading the parish magazines, are pretty solid, and they, have quite a lot of money usually, and so there's loads of different techniques. But like I said, franchising, to me, the definition of franchising is it's a process of excuse elimination, right? So when you say, oh, I don't have a business card, so I couldn't possibly go out and, try and solicit business. The franchisor says, here's your business card. When you say, I don't have a website, here's your website. Oh, I don't have a brochure, so I couldn't possibly go to somebody and tell them about my company without a brochure. Franchisor says, here's the brochure. And as you go on and as time goes by, especially over the course of the first year, what you'll find is that every one of those I couldn't possibly because excuses get eliminated by the franchisor. And thank heavens for that, right? Because what you end up being is in a situation where you suddenly realize that I only have one job, right? My job is to go out, implement the system, which is already proven. And often there are hundreds of franchisees who are following the same system. Follow that actual system, right? And go and make friends with humans. Go out there, speak to people, whether it be on Zoom or, hopefully soon face to face. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to go out there and just develop relationships, and those relationships will turn into business, and that business will turn into profit. So if you are thinking about getting into franchising, or you as a franchisor, I think that this kind of, my definition gives you a bit of a clue as to what you as a franchisor will be responsible for doing, is creating that situation for franchisees where they are able to focus on just going out and getting clients. And if you are thinking about joining a franchise, right, you know which questions to ask based on this, right? So what you actually want to find out is, we all know that you will be able to go and see the brochure and find out the great and the fun things about that business. But really what you want to know as a franchisee is, what is the support structure like? Who are the people that are actually supporting you? Because those people are going to be the guys following through, and those people are going to be the ones who keep your eye on the prize, focused exactly on just going out there, getting clients and making some money. And if those two things happen together, then you're in a wonderful situation, right? Because you actually have the ability to go and, build a solid business, which is saleable. Remember, within a franchise network, the resale of business is quite a huge thing. Even if you decided to exit the business after the 5-year term in your franchise, or even longer, franchising is quite an attractive thing to buy, especially for entrepreneurs who are buying businesses who know that this is solid, they know that it's a proven model, they know that the support, etc., is in there. And many franchisees turn not only into multi-unit franchisees, meaning that they've got multiple Starbucks or Dog First Aids or any of those type of businesses, right? But they also turn into multi-brand franchises. And I've met franchisees in my life that arrived in the UK illiterate. They started frying chicken at KFC, and now they own multiple Pizza Huts, KFCs, Starbucks, Costa, Creams, a number of these wonderful franchises. And they all started from very, very humble beginnings with no money. And they eventually built themselves up to where they are now, incredibly wealthy individuals. So then we start talking about the collaboration within franchising. And I hope that's given you a bit of a picture as to what, I believe franchising really is all about. But you start looking at the collaboration because, right now it's quite an important thing to start thinking about collaboration. I kind of like thinking about it as alliances more than collaboration. Because really, at the moment, even our direct competitors are not our enemy, if you know what I mean. Our enemy is the situation that we find ourselves in, right? We have a big problem coming. We've already had lockdown, but even now we can see the first traces of, multiple redundancies. We can see that even within, well, every industry that I've taken a look at, there are people who are really, really nervous and they're tightening up their belts. And I think that everybody has that sense that there's going to be a tough time ahead, at least for the next 2 years, as we try and get out of all of this. So right now is the time to make friends, even with your enemies. So within the franchising community, I've been talking to the franchisors about this over many sort of weeks, talking about how even if you do have a direct competitor in the swimming industry or in the window cleaning industry or in the restaurant industry, now's the time to start speaking to them, right? Figuring things out, because you do have your own USPs. Before COVID, everybody was very, very concerned about their own intellectual property. What if somebody knows how I teach kids to kick a ball in a particular way for a football franchise or something like that? And COVID, when everything went online, everybody suddenly realized that actually intellectual property is not so much in how you kick the ball. Intellectual property is more in how you treat your customers and the experience that your customers have. And some customers will be your customers, and other customers will prefer the look and the feel and the sound of the other business, your direct competitor even. And the market is big enough for all of us, and that is the beauty of this whole thing. So we have seen on multiple occasions how franchisors have been working together. We know in the restaurant industry, they've come together like you will not believe, just trying to figure out how to actually tackle this whole problem of not having people come into the restaurants. We've seen many franchises actually start talking to each other about, forming these dark kitchens and focusing on the delivery side of the model. So, even in the children's sector, the children's sector is probably the one where there's been the most kind of collaboration. Trying to figure out how to be able to do classes. Are these classes going to be indoors? Are they going to be outdoors? How do you, where do you buy your hand sanitizer? So we've had franchisors working together to actually go and buy the hand sanitizer in bulk. So there's a lot of stuff going on over there. And I think in the context of your business, whether you're an accountant, if you've got your own plumbing business, etc., I think you need to start looking around right now and try and figure out who you can collaborate with. Instead of trying to take that tiny little quarter-page advert in your local magazine, are there other companies that are going to benefit from collaborating with you and taking a full page? Is there an opportunity for PR where you guys can say, well, hold on, we've got these 4 businesses. It's a plumber, it's a lawn cutting business, it is, a cleaning business, etc. And have you got a story where you can say, we have been collaborating to be able to provide customers with a total service within their home, although it is separate businesses? So these are very, very important things to start doing. And I think that this is, the perfect time. And COVID has given us that perfect excuse to be able to, in effect, start making friends with, people who are our previous enemies. And there's an old philosopher that, he's actually got a statue in Parliament Square, a military guy called General Smuts. And it's been really, really, really interesting to see how he has, effectively, he came up with this theory called the theory of holism. And basically what he said was 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is equal to 5. Which is really, really, really interesting. Anyway, we've got a few questions coming on. And first one is Helia from Twitter, a direct message. If some unforeseen event occurred that would prevent from operating a franchise, do you know if there's any support out there? Who would you contact? Well, listen, honestly, if you're a franchisor, contact the Franchise Mastermind. So we've got a mastermind of about 350 franchisors on Facebook who are constantly working together. If you're a franchisee, the first port of call is your franchisor, because your franchisor is there to be able to help you through any situations. Sometimes it's quite a difficult thing, because You know, sometimes there is a bit of a friction between the franchisor and the franchisee. But you know, let me just assure you, I've not met a single franchisor who hasn't got the best sort of interest of their franchisees at heart. And I think quite often you are working, you know, towards the same goal. Sometimes it's just really difficult to see that. So, you know, in the absence of being able to speak to your franchisor, you know, feel free to you know, contact organisations like the British Franchise Association. Sometimes they can give you some really good advice on how to handle situations. But yeah, my advice really is to you know, definitely go in. You know, to start, you know, effectively, you know, just speaking to your franchisor if you can. Right, so we've got another question from Carla from Instagram. What do you think is the best way to promote a franchise? We've tried social media, but hoping for some tips. Oh, Carla, you know, it is without a doubt one of the most exciting times for the franchising industry right now, because the actual searches for you know, franchise opportunities out there has never been higher. You know, so there's been a massive spike in the number of people who are wanting to get into a franchise. So, in terms of promoting your franchise, you know, social media is a starting point, but you've got to take a look at what social media is. You've got to take a look at all the different mediums, right? So you've got you know, fantastic websites and magazines out there like What Franchise, which are, you know, slightly more expensive but very, very effective. You know, think about where your franchisee is now. Social media, we know, is much more of a from a franchise sales point of view, people do a lot of their discovery on social media, right? So they try and figure out more about your business on social media. When they're ready to actually buy, then quite often they go through Google, because they've already decided and call your you know, your franchise something like Mummy Yoga, right? You know, they would have done their research, gone and looked you up, and done all of that kind of stuff, especially on things like Instagram and, you know, the various social media platforms. But then when they're ready to actually make that purchase, or when they're ready to make that call, they're generally just going to type in your name into Google, right? And that'll pop up, and that's how they're going to get your details. So, you know, you can't neglect the Google side of the advertising, but equally you've got to see where Google is. And Google is much more of a buying intent platform. You know, where the social media is where they do a lot of their research, etc. So, you know, if I was going to give you some advice, and please feel free to join the Franchise Mastermind if you are about to, you know, franchise, or if you're currently franchising, you know, and just contact me directly, and I'll be more than happy just to give you a basic outline of a good recruitment process for franchising. Good morning, Sean. This is from Thomas from Twitter. Good morning, Sean. Do you earn an income from day one by investing in a franchise? Absolutely not. No. So, you know, this is one of those you know, those issues that sometimes franchisors are less good at communicating. But equally, if you are going to be investing in a franchise, you've got to realize this is still a business, right? There's absolutely no ways that you can be earning money from day one, unless you are, you know, talking about day one opening your doors, because we've seen on multiple occasions how, you know, you know, especially in the gym sector, how, you know, they have been able to do pre-sales and all kinds of other things that allow them to actually open completely full, you know, their business at least. So, you know, that's a really, you know, probably the best answer I can give you. But no, you are not going to be making money from day one. You do need to work hard, and despite the fact that you're buying a business, you've got to change your attitude, and you've got to see it as investing in a business. And that investment is going to take time for it to actually, you know, come to fruition. So yeah, it's going to be hard work, definitely. So let's just go on to Farouk from Facebook Messenger. Do you need a track record and experience with franchising before you go into it? Farouk, the good news is no, right? And often a track record and experience is the thing that's going to hold you back. So, you know, in unofficial terms, many franchisors, unless it's a specialist franchise, you know, so as an example, it might be a veterinary franchise or something of that nature, or accounting franchise, but even not so much the accounting franchises. You know, if you already have experience, so, you know, call it a retail franchise, and you've been in retail for many years, and then you buy into a retail franchise. quite often you find it quite difficult to actually agree with what the franchisor has to say. So the franchisor might say, right, you've got to do it this way, this way, and this way. And I've seen this so many times, and the franchisee then turns around and says, well, I haven't done it like that, and I found that doesn't work, and actually you should be doing it this way. So going into a franchise with no experience, and basically just being a clean slate, so to speak, is probably the best advantage that you have. If you listen to the franchisors and follow the model, and you could speak to 1,000 franchisors and they'll all say the same thing. The guys who just implement the system and follow the model are almost always the guys who are at the top of the rankings, making the most money, etc. The guys who are arguing and saying, no, you should do it this way and not that way, they quite often are the people who, take a lot longer to get to their goals. So that's the best advice I can give you from there. Mohammed from Instagram, what would you say is the benefits with implementing a finance program to assist franchisees? I'm not really sure at which point you're talking about. So, if you're talking about, financing their franchise, in all honesty, the banks are absolutely brilliant with it, even now, because the banks know that franchising is so solid. They are very sort of, they're very open to lending to the franchise world. If you're talking about for short-term loans, I wouldn't go into anything like that. Keep the finance separate. Let the finance people deal with finance. And if you are a franchisor, I'm not sure what the context is, but if you are a franchisor, then I would always recommend that you get or defer to the experts, because your job is to make sure that the business and the processes, etc., are all working, and that you're adapting on behalf of your franchisees to the business situation or the climate. Keep finance separate is my view, at least. Right, so we're just going on to Angelica from Facebook Messenger. When looking at the future of franchising, do you see any sectors being a better investment? Well, I mean, straight off the bat, franchising has, always had this moniker, recession proof, and that's been proven time after time after time. Quite often, franchises do better during recessions than anybody else. And I think that in many circumstances, that's been the case here too. Through this lockdown and pandemic. But let me tell you, the care sector, so the in-home care, and companies like Bluebird Care, Home Instead, and all of those type of businesses, they have had, in terms of franchise inquiries, more inquiries than the combined rest of the franchise industry over the past few weeks, which is really, really interesting. But equally, that also means that, it's a booming sector, because they can also now say pandemic proof or pandemic resistant, because of the situation where they have been working throughout the lockdown. Necessarily so, they've been key workers. They've been so crucial for many thousands of the elderly in the UK. And I think that, they probably are the unsung heroes of the pandemic. So guys, if you're in a care franchise, just, we've not forgotten about you, and we're just massively grateful for what you guys have done for everybody. But look, Angelica, the reality is that once the lockdown kind of lifts a little bit more, and once kids are able to go back to school, etc., most of the franchise businesses out there have been working tirelessly to be able to figure out how to solidify their opportunity. So what I would do if I were you is, first, when you're searching for a franchise, go and find something that you think you're going to love and that you're passionate about. Do that first, because the franchisors are pretty good people when it comes to making sure that their franchisees make money. So start off with what you love, and then start whittling down the options from that point forward. Yeah, I think that's probably the best advice I can give. Ada from Instagram, direct messenger. Would you say it's important to look at how long the business has been franchised? Ada, yes, definitely. I mean, so again, historically, it was always, a really, really good start for franchisors, before franchising, for these businesses to be in business for, in my view, 5 to 10 years, right? So a lot of the greatest franchises out there had been in business for a very, very long time. Before actually deciding to go into franchising, and there's various reasons why companies franchise, and what their motivations were. Some businesses, they find it's the best way to expand, because a franchisee is always going to be more passionate than a manager when it comes to opening up a remote location. They're much more motivated because there's a vested interest over there. Other businesses, what they really want to do is, sometimes it's, partly for cash flow and to help them be able to fund further developments in their business. They're still brilliant businesses, but their motivations are slightly different. But sometimes you actually get brand new brands, right, that have only been trading, for a few months, but they've been launched by franchisors, or they've been launched by people who are in franchising, who have effectively spotted a moment and an opportunity, and they've decided to franchise the business from scratch. Now, what you need to do is you need to take a look at who the people are behind the business. You need to take a look at who the support people are within the business, right? And if you can do that and be satisfied that they know what they're talking about and they have a decent track record, and you feel the concept is a strong one, absolutely go for it. So that's my opinion, but you really do need to just have a long, hard think about a business that's brand new. So that's pretty fantastic. Anyway, right, so we ran a poll during the talk, and in a second we're just going to bring up the poll results, and we asked you, what has been the impact on your franchise business? Now, 50% of you say that you've seen reduced trading activity, which is absolutely normal. We would absolutely expect that. And 50% of you guys said that you were unable to trade. Look, lockdown's been hard. Lockdown's been very, very, very hard for all of us. And those two results are not unexpected. They are, well, exactly what we've seen. Again, this is something that we've been dealing with on a daily basis in the Franchise Mastermind. So, if any of you guys are not part of that, I'd really encourage you to be there, because it really is a fantastic support system. So anyway, guys, any questions, please get in touch with QuickBooks, the QuickBooks support team on Facebook, or with myself, Sean at thespecialadvisor.com, or visit my website, and that is myfranchiseboard.com. Absolutely, I'd love to hear from you. And coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is a wonderful lady, Ava Mrazukova, who has transitioned businesses across a range of sectors to the QuickBooks Cloud platform. So Ava is part of GMCG's digital team, where she helps businesses maximize their efficiencies through the automation of systems and processes, and also how to make the most of data. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, and see you soon.